Centmin Mod is a LEMP stack that runs on CentOS. It sets up MariaDB, PHP, Nginx, and countless other things for you, and it makes your site easy to manage. Centmin Mod is used on all of the top Xenforo sites currently on the internet. If you're familiar with RunCloud and ServerPilot, you can think of CentMin as a free, self-managed alternative to those services. This video series will show you how to set up Xenforo 2 on CentMinMod with Digital Ocean and Cloudflare. I have to warn you, I'm not an expert. I will do my best to teach you everything I know, but I only have about a year's experience with this product, so it's important that you do your research also. When you're getting started with Centmin Mod, there are two things you need to check out. There is the install guide, and then there's the getting started guide. And these are going to tell you everything you need to know to get started. He's done a great job on setting up all the documentation. It can be a bit confusing at times, but if you're coming from a shared hosting to a self-hosting, that's where the complications are. Now, if you already have experience with hosting your own websites, then this is not going to be a problem for you. This tutorial series is going to be aimed at beginners. If you're just getting started with Centmin Mod, you will want to read through these guides a couple of times, and you might have to roll up a couple of servers 2 or 3 times just to get some practice before you go live with it. First thing we're going to do is set up a new droplet in DigitalOcean. We're going to select CentOS 7.6 on a standard plan. If you have just doing a small site or a test, you can certainly use the $5 plan. When you're using Cloudflare or a CDN, 75% of your requests are going to be cached at the CDN level. So you don't need a big fancy server sometimes. But on my website, guideattacking.com, I use the $20 one, and with Cloudflare, it works great. So I'm just going to do a $20 instance here, and we're going to set up some new SSH keys. And so to do that, we've got to open the terminal and run SSH keygen. So we'll do that now. It's going to name this CMM toot. Make sure that you use a complex password for that. You don't have to use one, but if for an added layer of security, you definitely want to think about doing it. Once it's created, you're going to go into your .ssh folder, and you can see your 2 certificates right here. So let's open those up, copy that, and then we're going to just paste that in there. I highly suggest you use a key in combination with a passphrase for the highest level of security. Our droplet, we're going to choose a host name. Now this comes into play later on with CentMin Mod, and I'll show you why. So we're just going to call this main, okay? It's important that you don't pick your host name. So the website we're going to set up is going to be testserver.best. You do not want to put testserver or testserver.best in here because you'll run into compatibility type issues later down the road. Once you're running your live site, you'll probably want to set up the droplet backups. It's pretty cheap and makes it real easy. We'll just create the droplet. Once that's finished, we'll have our IP address for our server right here. I'm going to be using MOBA Xterm. We're going to do a new session, SSH, remote host. Specify the username is just going to be root. Go advanced SSH settings and set your private key. That's right there. And now you'll be able to connect nice and easy. Once you're here, we got to put in our passphrase. And let's go over to we want to set up some notes. We want to put in our IP address, and we want to put in our CMM test for our passphrase. And first thing we'll do is let's go over to Centmin Mod, the install guide. And your first choice you have to make is, do I want to use the stable version or the development beta version? And I'm going to highly suggest you use the beta version, as a lot of new features, and I've never had a problem with it. I think most people are using it nowadays. Second question you have to ask yourself is, which PHP version do you want to use? You can always change it later. But in this case, we're going to use 7.3, the latest version, which in this case is 0.15 at the end. So we'll just run this, and you'll notice first thing it's going to do is do yum updates. Then it's going to download it and compile everything that CentMin Mod needs. So that's going to take quite some time, about 10 minutes, I think, in most cases. So while that's going, let's take a look at Cloudflare. So we want to add a new site. This site is going to be testserver.best. We're going to select the free plan. Honestly, the free plan is fantastic, and even if you have a really big site, you can use it and not really have any issues. So let's map out some DNS records. First one is just going to be our website, bestserver.net. It's going to be an A record, and it's going to just point to our IP address. And you always want to have it proxied. That's all we're going to add at this time, so just click continue. Now we'll go over to DNS. We notice our Cloudflare name server, so we need to copy these over to our domain registrar. I'm using Namecheap, and you just go into custom DNS and then add those 2 servers. Now this can take up to 48 hours for this to propagate out, but in most cases it only takes about 10 minutes. Now you'll notice I already made a mistake. This is supposed to be testserver.best. I don't know what I was just thinking. I am definitely prone to typos, so I apologize about that. Now we want to add some more records, okay? So this next record is also going to be a record, and it's just going to be main, because that was the host name that we chose, and you're going to find out why once we get into the CentMin Mod configuration. And so this a record for main is just going to point to 192.241.158.117. Now that host name we chose, that's just something that is important for us internally and how we're configuring. It really doesn't have anything to do with how your site's going to operate to the end user. But the way that Centmin Mod works is this is our default virtual host, okay? And so this is going to be where we store some of our special tools, and it's just integral to how Centmin Mod works, so it needs to be set up correctly. After that, let's set up a CName record, www, and the target is just going to be @ okay? So that's going to be an alias for our regular server, and in this manner, if someone types in a www dot, they will get redirected to your actual site. Almost all sites, you set up both, and then you just redirect the www to the non-www. And it depends how you're going to do your site. But let's save that, and that should get us started. This is still going. It's going to take about 10 minutes, like I said. The first issue you might run into is waiting for your server to get associated with the name servers and everything to propagate out. So what we can do is we can ping testserver.best, and we can see that is a Cloudflare IP address. We can do who is on 104.18.39.187. I'm just using, this is the Windows terminal preview. If you haven't seen it before, it's pretty cool. It can do bash, PowerShell, and command prompt. So if we scroll up, we can see it's Cloudflare. So we know it's the right thing. If that ping and that who is returns the wrong values, like if it said Namecheap, we would know that the information didn't propagate out. So now we've confirmed that it's set up on Cloudflare, and then we can finish what we're doing. But you can't set up SSL certs and you can't access your site until that part is finished. So let's go back to our tutorials here. So the install guide is basically finished. Once you've run that command and it's set up, you're then going to get started on the Get Started guide. The first step is setting up the default server main host name in Nginx. Now, the way we set it up with DigitalOcean was setting the host name to main. That's going to take care of a lot of problems that first-time users are going to have, because you'll see you have to set up the host name correctly. It can't be set the same host name as your actual server, as your actual website, your domain. And in case you did make any mistake or you didn't have DigitalOcean setting it up for you, you would have to go through a series of commands and setups to set this up correctly for you. If you're in that position where it's not working correctly, you will want to read these steps. There's about 6 steps here that you'll need to do, but in the manner that I've shown you, you don't need to do anything. Your mileage may vary on different other host providers. So if you're following this tutorial and you're using DigitalOcean, you can skip that whole first step. So if the first step isn't done correctly, then the second step is not going to work. So I had a lot of trouble learning that when I set up my server the first time. My goal for these videos is really to help new users get acclimated and setting up things without having any of the holdups and the gotchas that I had when I got started. So the second step is creating our Nginx vhost configuration for our main domain. And so the first command you're going to run once it gets set up is CentMin, and that's actually an alias for CentMin.sh, and then it's going to give you all these options you can run. And the one that we're going to do first is 2, and I'm going to show you how to set that up. Before we get started with our vhost generation, we're going to do follow terminal folder, and we are going to cd over to CentMin Mod. This is where some of the main configuration for CentMin Mod itself is. Now that custom config.inc, that is our persistent configuration file. So any custom settings for CentMin Mod, we're going to put in there. Even if we update or patch or whatever, those settings are going to remain the same. So let's open that up. So we're going to paste in these three guys. Let's encrypt detect is going to let us use let's encrypt. This is going to set any vhost that's generated is going to use the Cloudflare kind of module that's built into CentMin Mod. It's just a select collection of configurations. And then Nginx IPv allows for compatibility with IPv6. So let's write that to the file. And now we want to run CentMin again and select option 2. Now those settings we just put in, those are all part of the CentMin Mod Getting Started guide. So all you have to do is read that and you would learn all that. You want to continue? Yes, we do. The domain name is testserver.best. We want to create self-cert? No. If you're just testing or doing something internally, you can, but we want to go straight to using Let's Encrypt. FTP username is just going to be admin. Yes. Log those to our file. I just noticed when we generated that vhost, it did not ask us any questions about Let's Encrypt, and that's because I made a typo. If you'll notice here, we have the custom config.inc, and here we have config.inc. So that was the typo I made. So all we need to do is go into that file, grab those, and then paste them into the real file and save it and upload it. And this actually is a good opportunity for me to show you something else. How to remove a vhost. There's a command you can run that George supplied to us. You can paste it just like this, and it will list you all the log files that were generated when you added a vhost. And CentMinMod logs everything that you do basically. And in one of these files, you're going to find the commands that are necessary to remove this vhost from your server. So we change directory over to /root/CentMin logs. You should see 3 or 4 files here. Let's open them up. And one of these will have the commands to remove your vhost. I'm just going to do a find and replace here to get rid of those so we can just get our commands that we need. And we need this one too. So we'll just run these. That should remove our vhost. Now let's run CentMin again and regenerate. So we'll just select option 2 again. Yes. Test server.best. No, we don't want self-signed. Now it's going to ask us if we want Let's Encrypt because we had that file typed correctly. Yes. Yes, we do. You can pick option 3 or 4 here. We're going to do 3 here for testing purposes. Just say yes to this. Once that Let's Encrypt vhost generation is complete, we can access our website using HTTPS. This is just the test page. Now, before, when I made the typo, we only had our encryption happening between Cloudflare and the client's browsers. We didn't have it between the origin server and Cloudflare because we didn't have an SSL cert. Now that we fixed that typo and regenerated using Let's Encrypt, we should be able to select full. We can refresh the page now, and it should work fine. So yeah, it works fine now. Alternatively, you can use a self-signed certificate and you can go to full, but in order to go to strict, you need a Cloudflare origin certificate, and I'm going to show you how to do that in the second video. We should now be on HTTPS. It does work, and you can see we're looking at a different test page, okay? This is just a placeholder. So now let's exit out of here. I don't care about the updates right now. And what we want to do is we want to cd over to home ngx/domains. And now we should see we have our demo domain, and then here's our actual domain, testserver.best. It'll work in secured. We can do the same thing with SSL, and it works and it's secured. We can also do www. And connect unsecured with the www. Now, the next thing we want to check is, does that main subdomain work? We click that. Now we get our original test page, okay? So that works as well. Just to show you that it's all working well, we can go over to our testserver.best, and we're going to go to our public folder, and we're going to change that index.html. And we can go down here and see welcome, and we can just type in test here and save it, upload it to the server, and then let's F12 to get the developers console, and then we can do the hard refresh. Now when we emptied cache and reloaded, we can see it now says test here. So there it is, everything's working. Next thing you want to do is make sure that you can connect via FTP. So we put in our IP address, username, password. We're going to use explicit FTP over TLS if available. Under the transfer settings, you want to select passive, and now you should be able to connect. Now I think this is just using a self-signed certificate for this, so we're just going to accept this. And we're in. So the way the FTP access is set up, it only gives you access to your Nginx domains, okay? So we have our 4 folders here. In public, we can go in here, we can upload any of our website files, etc. So let's talk about Cloudflare for a minute. If you're ever under attack of a DDoS attack, you'll just want to activate under attack mode, but do be aware that the more popular booter services do have the ability to bypass that. It's called a CFUAM bypass. So it's not always going to protect you. You're going to have to use rate limiting and do some other things as well to really stop a resourceful attacker. Also, it's really important that you don't leak your IP address. Your origin IP can never leak. So there's many ways it can leak. You can do a misconfiguration at some point. If you ever set up your server before without Cloudflare and then you set it up, there's historical records that are going to have your old IP address in it. So if you're getting like a fresh start with Cloudflare, you're going to also want to switch servers. There's a bunch of things you can do to prevent DDoS, and I'm going to make a video on that later. But let's check out our SSL settings. So right now we're set on flexible. So our traffic is not encrypted between Cloudflare and our origin server, which is not a bad idea. I doubt you're going to get man in the middle at that point. If we click on origin server here, we can generate an origin certificate and then we can put that on our server. It's from Cloudflare, and then we can enable authenticated origin pulls. So once that's enabled, no one will be able to access your server by IP address. It'll only be able to access it through Cloudflare because it's going to authenticate with that cert. Let's go over to firewall and just show you there are these managed firewall rules right here, or the regular firewall rules, and you can activate 5 of them and then you're limited on the free plan. But if you go to tools, you can add as many as you want here. I have like 100 of them right now. You can also click settings and you can set your security level. The default is medium. I get attacked every day of the week, so I'm usually set on high. I do recommend enabling bot fight mode. That will stop known bots. Under caching, we have different caching levels. Standard is pretty much what you want to do. The browser cache timing is set to 4 hours by default. I think I have set mine to a day, I believe. So if you make any changes to static content, a new request isn't going to be created for that from the user's browser until a day has passed. Under page rules, I'm going to show you how to redirect www to non-www. And to do that, we're going to put in our page rule. So if a request matches this, we've got to put a slash, and then the settings are going to be, we're going to do forwarding URL, and we're going to select 301 permanent, and we're going to put in this. So it's going to redirect from, it's basically going to strip the www. We can save that and deploy it. Now if we go back to our site, we can do www.testserver.best, and it should redirect us and remove that for us. Perfect. There's plenty of documentation for all the features on the CentMod website. This is the Cloudflare guide. It tells you everything you need to know about using Cloudflare with CMM. Many of those things are now automated with the beta version. But you definitely want to go through and read it because you need to whitelist the Cloudflare IP addresses, and then you basically want to block everyone else. And that's done automatically in the latest beta version, but you definitely want to read through this and get an idea of what you're working with. Now let's just go over some of these CentMin Mod options. So when you first SSH in, sometimes there are updates available, and you're just going to type cm update, and that's going to update it. And then you just rerun centmin.sh, and that will take care of any changes that were there. You're basically never going to use option 1. If you're ever going to add a subdomain, you use number 2. Every couple of months, you're going to have to upgrade Nginx. Same thing with PHP. Option number 15 upgrades Imagic, the PHP extension, and you have to do that pretty frequently, actually. They update often. As for the rest of these options, I don't think I've ever used any of them. Now remember, we have this main subdomain, right? So this is going to be where a bunch of our tools are hosted. So right now, the whole world can access that, and we're probably going to want to lock it down. If we go back to our log file here, we have these different PHP files for like PHP info, our send opcache statistics, memcache stuff, and we can try to access all of those right here. And it's going to ask us for our password, which we have. So that enables us to see these things, but you can still access that main subdomain. So we're going to want to block that off. So let's go back to our shell here and go to /user/local/nginx/html. And this is our folder which contains those things for that default subdomain. And if we go up one, we can see config D, and now we're back here and we have virtual. So the virtual.config, that is the file for that default subdomain. We're basically going to want to lock that all down. To do that, we're going to use htpassword.sh. Show you that. I'm just going to paste this in. So this script is going to create us a new password. cmm pass is our pass. We'll hit enter. Now we can go back to our text editor here, and inside of location, we're going to add something new, and it's just typical authentication. It's just how we do it in Nginx. Save that. And now we have to do Ngx Restart. So that's an alias just for restarting the service. And anytime you change those config files, you need to run it. And now, if we go here, it should ask us for a password. There we go. I had to do it twice. Now it's taken place. So now, in order to get in, we need to do cmm toot and cmm pass. Boom. So now, even if you made a mistake on one of those pages, or you put a tool in here you don't want people to have access to, now they can't get in. So just to show you that again, just inside of our location block, we're going to add auth basic with that's basically just what's going to pop up when they try to access it, and then the authorization file, which contains our username and password, is right there. I'm just going to show you some other various things that you're going to want to get familiar with. Nginx, you're going to have to restart pretty frequently. FPM restart, so that is for restarting the PHP. Now, CentOS we're using the CSF firewall. So if you go to /etc/cff, this is the folder that's going to contain all the rules for the firewall. Most importantly, you're going to have CSF ignore, allow, and deny, and those are what you're going to be working with frequently. So this has all the rules for what we're going to deny. An important one here is census.io. They do like historical DNS records, but they also do historical records regarding your SSL certs and a lot of other things. So if you're trying to hide your origin IP address and other things like that from attackers, definitely have them blocked. This is all automated by CentMin Mod. So if you wanted to deny someone new, you would just look up the CSF rule set on their website in the documentation and just add new things to it. Anytime that you make any changes, what you're going to have to do is CSF-R. Now, if you just do that, it's just rebooting CSF. If you want to also reboot LFD, you want to do /RA. So anytime you make any changes to the firewall, run that. Another thing you're going to want to look at frequently is do crontab-E, and that's going to take a look at all your cron jobs. So there's 3 things in there right now. I think on my main server I have like 15 different cron jobs. The first one is this autoprotect.sh. That basically goes through your folders, looks for htaccess files, which are Apache files, and it tries to recreate Nginx configurations to match that so you don't accidentally expose something. CM info updater just grabs new information and about patches and stuff from CentMinMod. And then every couple of years, the Cloudflare's origin certs change, and so you need to get a fresh updated version, or else you can't use your site. Another thing I want to show you is the persistent PHP config files. So if you go to this directory /etc/CentMinMod/php.d, you're going to find a custom.php. Now these are your custom rules for PHP right here. But these are not persistent, so CentMin Mod will overwrite those. So to create a persistent one, we're going to create a new empty file, and it's going to be b_custom.php.ini, and you're going to want to set these to the same permission values, so it's 322. I'll do the same. So let's go in there and add a couple things here. I'm going to add date.timezone equals America, New York, because that's my time zone. Basically, I want all my logs to be in my time zone. And then opcache.enable equals 1 because I'm using Zen to opcache. Save that. And then we have to do FPM restart for those things to take effect. An important documentation for CentMin Mod is the config files. This is going to show you where every config file is located and what it's used for. This is hugely important. Once you get all set up and running, you want to drill down all these and check them all out so you understand what's going on. So I think that's it for this tutorial. We got you up and running, showed you everything you need to know to get started, and look forward to more videos soon. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Again, guidedhacking.com/donate, patreon.com/guidedhacking. Please support us so that we can continue to make videos, and peace out.